Hello, everyone. Welcome to the workshop. Workshop Wednesday. I said we'd do it this week. So yeah, we're here. I've got my UV and Aegis. And how is everybody this week? Hey, Seeker.
You guys are doing well.
Migzil, Ace of Spades. Balazus, Ramper, Smash Pro, Zachary. You're all awesome, by the way. I just thought I'd say. Love you all.
Yes.
There we go. Yes. I got chat.
Welcome to the workshop stream.
Yeah.
What, did you lose your chat?
No, I was having my own chat. There we go.
Ah, fair enough. I hope the audio's coming through okay for everyone, by the way.
Test, 1, 2, 3.
Should be good.
Yeah, should be okay. As I say, oh, hang on. Where is it? I've lost something. I'm losing the plot.
No.
There we go. Oh, I just found it. I found the subplot.
Yay.
Oh no, not maths exams.
Ooh.
Exams
Good luck with that, Rampa. Yes, they do.
So yeah, today we're covering some pew pew and stuff.
So do you want to go on?
Oh, you go ahead.
Yeah, as requested, there has been users wanting to learn how to create weapons within Neos, whether it be for games or for their own props or for machinima or any kind of use for those kinds of items and such, and decided to find out what kind of simple weapon to start off for setting up, and found a model of mine, kind of did some retexturing of it, made some pre-made effects for it. I can open it up and show how it's done and all that. Ravy will definitely be helping me plug it in to the logics portion of it and getting it working with a what is called a raycast weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Woo! Yeah, pew pews. The gaming colony.
Pew-pews.
A nutcake. Yeah, I love doing that. I just love watching Twitch streams within Neos. I just love it. I just love that works. And it gets really trippy when you've got the 3D audio turned on, though.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's people around you, but you're hearing ghosts.
I am Greaser. Long story short, raw data tooltip. Yes! Hello,
yes.
Kyovo. Welcome to the stream.
Kyovo, hello.
Okay, so I will let you two get on with that. I'll give... Who wants the camera, then?
I think we can start with Aegis.
Yep, I'll give the camera
First of all, this is what we're going to be working with today.
There we go, Aegis.
Yeah.
The camera's on you now, Aegis, so...
Yep, I can see the camera preview over there,
everyone gets to see the little camera preview that no one ever sees.
Oh, yeah. I should probably have said that.
Well, it's just a camera preview, so...
Yeah, fair.
But yeah, it's an old model that I decided to revive and added some nice textures from JS Placement. And I've added some firing effects to it. Ravy helped out with the beam effects, and I also made a decal effect that you'll be able to see that it will be functioning as well. So you can take this and head over to the main area over here. If I can have good tracking, there we go. That's just a
There's two.
duplicate. And just use this one. We'll need this for later.
For everyone here, what all have you already set up in terms of like logics and such?
So let's crack this open. So to look at the hierarchy structure here, you got what is called the digital rifle. That's what I'm calling it so far. And that houses everything underneath it. The model, the effects, the logics, and the decals. And as you can see here, you got like the meshes here, you got the scrolling material here, got like panners and some unlit materials and textures going on over here. And the firing effects, which I can... Oh, I have it already set up with the logics. I can crack that open as well too.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. It'll help me understand on how to hook it up once we get to my part.
Extremely simple on that end. So, basically, as soon as I press this pulse,
Ooh.
it creates a couple of different particle effects, some scrolling textures, and these two parts of the barrel kind of jolt back like recoil.
Pew pew.
And it's all controlled by this small logic circuit. And the rest is using components, whether it be value gradient drivers or, particle effects, which have like a boolean to turn on and off. Actually, that's another thing we should cover sometime is particle effects.
Yes. Well, before we can get the weapon set up, we need to turn it into a weapon. How do we do that?
So, let me just pack that back in. Can delete these for now. So, as, what was it, Kyovaru mentioned it in the chat, or who mentioned it?
I'm Greaser, mentioned, long story short, raw data tooltip, and
Yes.
they're exactly right.
Yep. So, one thing I also did too is made sure that the scale of the object is around 1 to 1 scale. Otherwise, sometimes people put in a raw data tooltip and it resets its scale every time you equip it. Either it's so massive you can't see it, or it's the opposite, so it's so tiny. So, in order for us to make this an equippable object, we're going to have to go to the root of the object right here. You still have the grabbable component here. You're still going to need it. So I'm going to go here and attach components. And we're going to the tools category. And under tooltips. Now, we find raw data tooltip, which is right here. Double click that. And let me deselect. And I should probably turn on my other base station. And,
Yeah, that's how you hold a gun.
Yes. At least it's not facing towards me, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, that's essentially how you make it equipable in the first place, is simply adding that component. Now, obviously, this is upside down. Now, one thing I'd like to do as well, what it does when you do make it an equipable object, it generates these two objects here, left grip and right grip pose. I simply just select the main root, hit the child object here, creates a child object, and I'm going to select it and rename this to grip.
Oh, Nex woke up. Hi, Nex.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or evening.
Good
So,
day. There you go.
yes. Now, if I do select one of these, This is what's on it. You got the grip hose reference. Now, you don't really need to play around with this component. It's just mainly playing around with the position. Now, I think I have custom bindings on me. Do you want to demonstrate the repositioning?
Sure. Could I have the camera, Rafe? I will presume the camera is on me. So, when you're grabbing an object, or when you have an equippable, it automatically sets up grip positions for each hand, one for your left hand and one for your right hand. Now, this is incorrect. Now, to set up the grip positions correctly, what you can do, and it's different for per controller, but for index controllers in specific, you can enter edit mode. Now, actually, there's two ways to, or it's UI edit mode, right? Let me just do it real quick just to make sure. Okay, so on index controllers, for example, you'll hold down your left or right dash button and double press the other one, and if you open your UI menu, you'll see a button that says turn UI menu edit mode off. But while you're in this mode, you can grab your weapon or item and you'll see this little hand show up. Now, with your other hand, you can just grab the item and reposition your grip. Like so. I'll do it for my other hand. There we go. So now if I hold one of the menu buttons and double press the other, it turns off that mode, and now the weapon is held properly. There we have it. Is that all for setting up a weapon, Aegis, or do we have a little bit more? I think that's about it.
I believe so. And as you can see, if I equip it, it's roughly the same. Of course, every single avatar is different, so it's going to be different depending on who you are.
Mm-hmm. One thing of note, the raw data tooltip component itself is not necessarily just for weapons. It's for anything equippable. Weapons, a clip, a ball,
Tools.
Anything you want. Tools. If you want something that can be equipped like a tool, you use raw data tooltip. The reason it's called that, by the way, is because it provides raw data information from your controller inputs to logics and such, so that you can do things with it, which that's exactly what we're going to be doing when we get to that part.
Now I can open up the component here. So that's another thing we can showcase too. There we go. Let me deselect again. And for example, do you want to equip it and mess around with like your controller?
Sure.
So as RYUV equips it, you can tell which controller the tool is equipped. You can see the primary strength, which is like the trigger. Secondary axes is like the position of the thumb on the touchpad in this case. Then you can see if the primary is clicked or, actually clicked all the way. Secondary, which is like the touchpad. And we got
we have a question from Kirkmon. What is the motion or key press for the handhold again? And now it's different for each controller. I should clarify. For controllers that have A and B buttons for each controller, it is your dash buttons. So you'll hold one and double press the other. And Kiowa mentioned on Vive Wands, you hold both of the menu buttons on both of your controllers. And that enables that mode. Or disables it if it's enabled.
Mm-hmm. And if you have it enabled, you can always open your dash and click disable.
Mm-hmm.
Easily.
Yes, there's a button that says disable UI if you're having trouble with that.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess that's the basics for setting this up. I suppose next is getting it set up with the right logics.
Alright.
Alright. If I could have the camera, then we can begin. Alright. Ooh, hello, gun. Oh, you reset the rotation.
And scale.
Okay.
There we go.
So, to begin, of course, you will need yourself a logics tip. Once you have one, do we have a logics folder? We do, except I'm going to make another one for firing logics. If I can type, that is.
This, actually.
I can't type today. Also, I did that really quickly, but what I did was I selected the root and I clicked the star button here, which adds a new empty slot child to the item, and I just gave it a name. Okay, now before I do anything, since I'm going to want to pack this logics into this slot, I'm going to aim at it and hold grip to grab it. Then, while I'm doing this, I'm going to open my context menu and choose it as the packing route. Great. So we have this as the packing route. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the thing that gives you the information of your controllers to logics is the raw data tooltip component. So I'm going to go back to the root. I'm going to grab the header here of the raw data tooltip component, and while I'm aiming in the world, I'm just going to press secondary and pop out its interface card, which is massive. While I'm here, I'm also going to deselect. Okay. So we have our interface card, but we're not actually going to use it. We're actually going to use the a logics node, which gives us direct access to all of these things, and we don't have to do any kind of fancy business. So we're going to open our node browser from our context menu, and we're going to go under, I believe, is Tools, Raw Data Tooltip Events, and I'm going to double-click to spawn the node. Here it is. So what this takes in is the raw data tooltip, and it outputs a bunch of different pulses, like primary pressed, primary held, primary released. So you can do different things based on when you press the trigger or release, or while you're holding it, for example. So to start, we're going to take the raw data tooltip component up here and drag it into here. This gives us that. We can delete this now. So now, as an example, if I pull out a display with primary pressed, and for those new here, to do that, I will just hold it with my trigger and press secondary to pop out a display. So now, when I grab the weapon and press my primary, it sends a pulse. Great. We can now do something with that. Let me just reset this thing's rotation and scale. There we go. Cool. So, the next thing we're going to need to do is, this weapon is going to act not necessarily with a projectile, but with a beam. It will basically trace out to the front of the weapon infinitely far away and hit something and hit it immediately. And to do that, we need a raycast, which is under Physics, raycast 1. Now, we want raycast 1 instead of raycaster. 1, because it has an input, and 2, because Raycaster is constantly checking rays and such, and we only want 1 when you fire it. So, when you press your trigger, we will raycast, okay? Now, we need a slot that we will cast this ray from, and I will add one to our weapon. I will call this fire point. And with my dev tip, I'm going to move it up to out here. Now we'll notice on this point that the z-axis, the blue arrow, is pointing forward. This is important because that is the direction that we want this node to cast its ray from. Well, we look for the direction input, pop out an input by pressing secondary, and we want Z, which is the third one. We'll set that to 1, and that tells us it will aim a ray that way. Okay, now if I just pulse this as is, its origin is 0 right now, so it'll fire from the center of the world, which, well, that's not the gun. Instead, what we want to do is we want to fire it from some place, which conveniently, we just made a point for that. So I will grab our fire point here, press secondary to pop out its interface card, and I will plug it in here to the root of the raycast. Now, when we send a ray, which actually we can demonstrate this, there is conveniently a debug duration input here, which gives us nice handy information to make sure that everything's working properly. I'll set this to 2 seconds. And deselect. And I come up here and fire the weapon. You see, pew, it fires a ray. Oh, I see Aegis already set up the firing effects. Very nice. Okay, good. So our ray is going in the right direction, which is a good thing to check because there have been many a times where I've set up a raycast and it's flying sideways. I don't think you want a gun that shoots sideways. I mean, unless you do, then carry on, but... Okay. So we can get rid of this debug duration because, well, we don't need that. So, our outputs for the raycast are on hit and on miss. If you hit anything, this pulse will hit, and if you miss everything, like if you aim at the sky and shoot, then this will pulse. Well, we want our visual effect to occur when either of these happen. And we want different behavior for each, because if you miss your shot, then this hit point value that we need is 0. So every shot you hit will aim at the world root. We don't want that. So to do this, I'm going to go under flow. We're going to get a fancy sounding node, impulse demultiplexer. What this does is it takes multiple input pulses and outputs one, but it also tells you which one it pulsed from. The top one being 0, the bottom one being 1. Great. So we want to go between two values, and we can do that using a multiplex node, which all this does is let you pick one of these values to put through to the output. So on hit is 0. So we want our 0th one to be our hit point because I'm hearing Wraith. You are not, but don't mind it. So we have our hit point here as the output. But, also I'm going to plug the index in here so that based on which one of these fires, it picks one of these values. So we have the on-hit value, but now we need a fallback value so that your weapon isn't always aiming at the center of the world when you miss. So for that, well, we have a direction already. Fire point. We need... Oh, did you move the weapon?
Just the point.
Okay.
There's no raycasting on the colliders.
Fair point. Okay.
Yes.
So we have our fire point, and the z-axis, the blue axis, is the forward direction. So we're going to want to get transform forward. Conveniently, we already have a reference to that, so we can just refer there. And this forward, if you just leave it as is, it will be 1 meter out. So if you were to shoot right now using just this value, your beam would only be 1 meter or 3 feet long, which that's kind of weird. So instead,
give or take around here.
So instead, we're going to multiply this value by a certain amount. Also, you'll notice I had to pull a float value here because when you plug in a float 3 into any of these operators, it sets both of the input to float 3. But instead of having to go in here and drag out a float 3 and type the same number 3 times, instead, you can just get a float 1, plug it in, and it'll automatically convert and apply that to all 3 axes. So, now that we have this, let's make it, 512 meters long. That's pretty big. And we will plug this into the on-miss of the multiplex. Great. So now we have a value, but this is a global position. Now, for reasons as to why we will get in a moment, we need that to be local. So, I'm going to go back to transform, and we get the convenient global point to local node. Now I'm going to leave this here and come back to that. Actually, never mind. Actually, we might have a good reason to start here. So let's set up the template bullet, if you will. Let's see. Template. And underneath it, I'm going to add something called beam. Now, underneath this beam, we are going to add a slot and call it mesh. And I'm going to attach to this a procedural mesh, which is the segment mesh. And I'm going to set up its renderer while I'm at it. It's minuscule, okay. Oh, right, because it's not going anywhere. There we go. So we have a beam mesh. Great. And yes, if you have trouble understanding what's going on here, we do publish these videos to YouTube so you can view them at your leisure. Now, for this beam that's going to... Well, let me take a step back. When you fire the weapon, it's going to leave a beam where you fired like a tracer round, and it will fade out after, half a second or so. That's what this is. So every time you fire, it'll make a new tracer beam and look cool. So on the template, I'm going to add a assets, materials, unlit, Fresnel material. Yes, it's silent. And, no, not Fresnel. So I'm going to give this a nice purple color. Because, well, the weapon's purple. And I'm going to apply this to the mesh just so I can see what we're doing. Let me deselect again. I'll stay on the dev tip for now, okay? We have a big bright beam. But we want it to glow, so let's set it to additive. We have an even brighter beam. Great. So, okay. I'll set this up now. So, the idea of this beam is every time you fire, it will take this beam template here, duplicate it, and by the very fact of duplicating that slot, the logics on it will cause it to fade out over our set amount of time and clean itself up after it's done so that we don't leave the world with a bunch of beams. Which might be neat if you wanted to see every single shot you did in the game, but that's about it. So, for this beam, I'm also going to give it some logics. So I'm going to give it a child. And type correctly this time, logics. And back to my logics tool. I'm going to set this as the new packing route. And this time, this slot we know is going to be duplicated, and trust me, I'll get back to this logics in just a minute. This will all come together. So, this is going to be duplicated. We're going to go to Flow, Events, Unduplicate. So this pulse will fire whenever the slot that this logic is attached to is duplicated. Great, exactly what we want. Now, we want an elapsed time because we want something to happen over time. So, we would go to Input, Elapsed Time, plug that in, and we want, after a certain amount of delay, to delete the slot. So for that, we will go Flow, Delay, plug that in, and let's say this thing cleans itself up after, I don't know, half a second. And what will we do once that delay fires? Well, we will destroy slot. Now,
this is very similar to how you set up decals for weapons as well.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty much the same concept, a decal that will clean itself up over time. So the slot that we're going to be deleting, beam. We'll place this in here. Now we also want this beam to fade out over a set duration before it deletes itself. Excuse me. To do that, this is a good segue back to the material that I actually just realized I need to put on the beam itself. Whoops. Well, to fix that, instead of having to make the material again and set it up, we can go to Essential Tools, and there is conveniently a tool called Component Clone Tip. This tool allows you to grab a component, press secondary to put it into the tool, then you can go to another slot and click on the handle of the inspector while you're on that slot, and there's your material or whatever other component you just duplicate onto it. Perfect. I'm actually going to keep this on me because it might be handy. So with this material on the beam, I'm going to go back up here and delete this and apply this material back onto the beam. Great. So one neat thing about the Fresnel material is if we take a look at this, you'll notice how the edges of the beam are a little bit darker than the center. That's due to the fact that our near color, which is the color that the mesh takes on when it's facing directly at you, is brighter than, the far color, which is 0, black. But this is also based on the exponent. If I set the exponent lower, say 0.4, then our material is a little bit darker. And we can use this to our advantage by taking this exponent and making it go from 1 to 0 so that it looks like the beam fades out, which is exactly what we want. So for that, we know that before we do this, so I can test, I'm going to cut this line so that we don't accidentally destroy what we're working on. And if we look at the output of elapsed time and pulse it, you see it goes from 0 to 1. But we want our value to go from 1 to 0. So to do that, we need an operator's 1 minus x. What this does is it makes our 0 to 1 value go from 1 to 0. But you'll also see it goes negative. To stop it from going negative, we can go to Math, clamp 0, 1. And what this node does is it clamps a value between 0 and 1. Perfect. We now have a value that goes from 1 to 0. However, this is going a little bit too slow because this value will be not 0 by the time that this delay is all the way through. So we need to multiply our input value to match. In this case, we'll multiply it by 2. Great. So, if I take this new value of ours and grab our Fresnel material and pop out its interface card, if I plug this into the exponent, you'll see our beam goes away, but when I pulse this, it does a neat fade, like so. Now, as a quick little added bonus, I'm also going to make the mesh start large, and then as it fades out, it fades to 0, so it looks even more like a fading, trail of a beam. To do that, we already have a value that we can use for that. We just need to map it to something else. Thankfully, to do that, we have a node remap. And here, I'm going to plug this into the value. Now, this has an input minimum and an output min and max. Our input goes from 0 to 1. And our current size of the mesh is 0.1. Let's say we start off at 0.35, which is a nice big trail, and we want that to go to 0. So let's have our start value here, which is our output matches with 1.035. Oops. And I will now take this segment mesh and pop out its interface card again, and plug in the remap here to the radius. Great. Now, when I pulse this, the beam starts big and shrinks down. Let me deselect so that we can see what we're doing. There it goes. Cool. So now we have our pretty much fully set up logics for the beam. We just need to plug back in the plug back in the delay to the destroy logics. And now I will, underneath the beam's logics, well, actually we already have it here. I will hold secondary until the ring is complete, aim at the logics you want to pack, and let go. And now, just like all the other times before, our logics for this is packed underneath the beam. Great. Now, back on to why this global point to local is essential for this. And if we look at the segment mesh, point A is 0, 0. That's where the beam is coming from. And point B is where it's going to. In this case, I have it set to going up on the y-axis by 1 meter, which is it's been going up like that. Instead, what we want is we want the beam, when it's duplicated, it will duplicate at the end of the weapon, and its endpoint will be the end of the raycast, which is what we're getting here, which is why we did all of this. But this is a global position, not a local position. So, therefore, we use global point to local. Now, I will grab the parent of the beam here and pop out its interface and plug this slot in here. The reason we're using the parent is because we're turning this value from global space into this slot's local space, which is its parent. Okay, now we have our value and we need to write that position to our endpoint. To do that, of course, we need the write node under Actions, Write. And we will plug this in, and we are writing this to the segment meshes, point B. Okay. Now, we need to duplicate our beam slot. And this will also trigger its own logics, as we just set up. So we will be duplicating beam. Plug it in. And now we will set this, because when you duplicate a slot, it will duplicate it and it will still be located under template. Rather, we want that to be under the slot that you're in, so that the beam doesn't move with you. It stays in place as if it was a tracer. So for that, we will... Where is set parent? For some reason it evades me. There it is, set parent. We will set parent this slot, and we will set it to... I believe it is... local user space. Now this is a node that I actually forgot existed, but what this does is it gets your local, the slot that you're in our case, I think it's just the root, but whichever. Now, we can use local here because you, the user, are the one who is sending all of these pulses, so you, the user, are the one whose parent that it will put it under. Great. So now we have... Mm-hmm.
Would it move with you if you move?
No.
Oh?
If I pull this out, we'll see that we are under the spawn area, which this gets you the parent of the slot that you are in, not the slot that you are. Very handy node.
The more you know.
The more you know.
Also,
I learned about this today, by the way.
Might I,
Yes, I was just about to get to that. So, another thing we want to do is we want to make sure that this slot is non-persistent. So if you start shooting guns and someone decides to save the world, it doesn't save the world with all of these traces in it. So we are also going to set this this slot's persistence to false.
It is also located within the slots category near the bottom right here.
Yes. Okay. Now, finally, we want to play a sound. For that, we're going to go to Audio, Play One Shot. Now, this is a massive node, but don't worry about it. And another node we'll need is an audio clip input. Aegis, do you have the audio available on you? Yes, you do. So to place an audio clip like this, which if we play it, sounds like that. If to place this in the audio clip, we can grab it, move our laser between it and the node, and let go. And you'll see the sound shows up right here. We will plug this into the clip input. And we want this sound to play from a certain point. Well, conveniently, we have a point, which is our duplicated slot. Boop. Place that there.
If it wasn't connected, it would just play from the node itself.
Mm-hmm. And I think a volume of 1 is fine. Everything here is fine. We can just leave all of these.
Show people how to randomize the pitch.
Ah, yes. So, to randomize the pitch, which would be the speed here, one thing we can do is we can go under Math, Random Float. Now this takes in a minimum and maximum input and outputs a random value. By default, it's anywhere between 0 and 1. But we don't want our sounds to vary that much. So instead, let's say we'll go from 0.95 to 105. That's a maximum difference of 10%. We'll plug this into the speed. Actually, if I pull this out, you can see the value is now only between 0.95 and 1.05, which is exactly what we want. Is that all that we think we could do on the sound, or did you suggest something else? Oh, right. We need the distance space to be global. Don't worry about this. I believe that will... No? Interesting.
Wait.
Volume should by default be 1. Maybe I'm mistaken.
It's
Well, let's
playing
look
on
through
the
these.
duplicate slot.
Oh,
That's
yes,
why.
because there is no duplicate yet, so it's playing at the origin of the world. There you go. You can hear
we
it's
plug that
slightly different every time. Actually, that means I can get rid of this. Don't worry about that. And we will not parent this under the root, because otherwise it will just... Well, it will delete with the beam, and we don't necessarily want that because the sound is longer than that. Okay. After all of this, we have our mostly completed logics. Actually, completely completed logics. So I'm going to... Well, before we pack this, I think we should test it. Now, one thing. Our template here is in the completely wrong location. To fix that, I'm going to place the template under the fire point, actually, and reset its position. Okay. And I'm also going to hide this so that we don't see it. Now, if I did everything correctly and didn't screw up, if we pull the trigger on this, it fires. That's actually really fun. You fire it so we can see it from a different angle. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I will now pack this logics.
Let's
Actually,
reset.
Let's reset. Just to keep everything nice and tidy. And underneath firing logics, I will, just like I did before, hold secondary, aim at the logics, and release to pack. Awesome. We now have some logics for that. So that is the main logics for setting up a weapon. Oh, now he's dual firing.
What?
Oh, you broke it.
I duplicated.
You broke it.
That's strange.
Hmm.
Huh.
Okay. Well, we have about 14 minutes left. Do you think that's enough time to do what you wanted?
It was simply just adding that decal effect.
Hmm.
Now, I already most of it because it's identical to what you were doing in regards to the beam. So, also, we could probably diagnose what's going on with that weird duplication. So, just like how the template is, I also have the decal template here. Now, I'm going to open this up and show you what I have set. So, I simply have like a little...
Mm-hmm. Actually, before you get to that, Earthmark did mention something interesting. There is a limit to how many audio players can exist at once, so if the clip is constantly playing, it's fine. If it's only playing on occasion, it's not great, but not bad. The problem with what they're made here is that if you spam it, the sounds stack, which can cause the same too many audio sources issue. Yes, that is an issue. There are ways around this. They didn't add a block to the duplicate, so it deleted itself. This is quite common, yes. There are other ways to prevent this so that you can spam this as much as you like. But for the sake of what we have now...
I realize, yeah, that's why it
One
didn't
thing to prevent
function.
this... One thing to prevent this, actually, is to simply limit how quickly you can fire the weapon.
I know, but remember how when I duplicated the weapon, it didn't fire?
Mm-hmm.
It's because you duplicated the weapon, which also duplicated the object.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Huh.
Well, anyhow, not to interrupt you.
We'll look into that later. So, I have a quad here that has like a little effect and a couple of particles as well. I'm going to disconnect this so it doesn't delete itself. And kind of get a little test pulse here going just to show you what's going on here. So you see like a little pixelated hit point here and some particles spraying out like sparks. Now what I have here is a sphere emitter of a particle emitter using like a Boolean latch. As the pulse goes through, it turns it on. I then just take the pulse from the delay here to the elapsed time. I just have this set up here so I can just pulse it multiple times. So it turns off the emitter. So every time you turn on an emitter, it shoots out particles. And along the elapsed time here, I multiply it by this value, and it goes to the progress of the color of the material of the little quad there that has the little like X right there every time you hit something. See, as you can see, it kind of fades out when you shoot it. And of course, it will delete itself once it's done. So I will actually pack this back up. I was going to use a different method for the decal, but this is much better to unduplicate. So, in this case, yep, you can see here the hierarchy, the decal template, decal, the quad, the muzzle flash particles. I modified it and kind of turned into those sparks. Now I'm going to hide that. And we don't need to really move it in any specific spot, as what we're actually going to do is use the existing logics here and unpack it again. Oh wait, wrong logics. My bad.
Other logics.
Habit. There we go.
Oh, you unpacked the beam logics. Let's unhide that. Are you looking at the other logics? Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Fire logics.
Thank you. So, with the rate cast, you got point A and point B. With your origin, you already got it set, and point B, which is your hit point here. But we're gonna actually also need this value right here, the hit normal, which is the direction of the triangle that it hits. If you ever notice when the debug visual was active, it showed like a little triangle every time it hits a model. And depending on which side that's facing, if it's facing up, back, the normal will show the direction of it. So we're going to use that to actually align that decal flat amongst the surface of any object. So I'm actually going to bring that out here and bring this here too. So we got this duplicate slot here. Actually, we can even continue on after the
Yes, we can.
play one shot. So we'll go here, find the... Actually...
Let me just interject here and mention, we have a user who is asking, what is this? This is the Workshop Wednesday stream of what we're providing here for Neos VR, where we can show you the various tools and things that Neos provides for its users as a creative engine. But, go on.
So, one thing I am going to get... This is another way of getting the object that's underneath the template, is simply going to the slot category in your logics nodes and get child. This node will get the child object underneath a... Actually, we're going to need to put that behind that. So it has an index. Each object underneath something has an index. For example, when you have this digital rifle here, you have this object right here, which is the material, and that's like 0, 1, 2, 3, and so forth. So what I am going to do, by default, it's 0, or it gets the first child object that it finds. And so I'm going to take the decal template object and drag it into here. Now, if I drag this out, you can see it's going to duplicate the decal object. I'll set that aside. Now, we're going to do the same thing and parent this object to the local space. We can just drag it and use the same node we got there. Same with the set persistence slot. And let's set it to false. And so we can get rid of that. What we'll also need is a way to now position the object where it goes. Now with the beam, it just takes it where it was last left off in regards of its position. So we're going to need a node under transform. So right here is it set global position. We're going to need this node. And we're also going to need the set forward node. Now the forward is the Z. Now, if I select the decal, the Z, I made it so that that's the direction that the particles will go. And where, like, you'll see the decal. And so I will be taking these over here. And plugging these in. And plugging these into the slot that we'll be doing the transformation. And for the position, we're going to go all the way to the raycast node and find the hit point. So, this, go right here and grab
Just
the
to do
forward of the...
Quick interjection. I would recommend, actually, that we use this.
Oh?
Why? Because that gives you a fallback. So that the decal is always at the end
when you miss.
of the beam. Yes. Something you definitely need to take into account sometimes.
Thank you for reminding me that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got that plugged in. And now I am actually going to plug in the hit normal as well.
Pire Zero says, Aegis never misses, fool.
Actually, to also add on to Bracket Proto's question there, if you already have it like in a FBX format, there's also other formats you can use as well. If you use Blender or such, you can also use a GLTF and a DAE file, which also supports rigs. But the only two formats that actually uses blend shapes on an avatar is a FBX or a GLTF. So, we got the set forward here. And I think that's it. So. Let's see. Let's hope this doesn't break again. Now, we take this. Okay. That's weird. I do not see it. But let's diagnose why.
Ah, yes, the lovely art of diagnosing malfunctional logics. Great.
Yes. So, it gets the object, it duplicates it, it sets the parent to local space, sets it to non-persistent, sets the global position, and sets the forward.
Mm-hmm.
That is strange.
Well, we can test to see if the pulse is even getting this far, if you grab the gun and fire it. That's one thing that I like to do first, is just to make sure that the things you're wanting to do are actually happening. And it is. Okay.
So, should we see if it's parented in the,
Yeah, let's take a look. Interesting.
Okay, so it's not duplicating. So maybe it's this?
It might be. Let's take a quick look at your logics.
Maybe it's the get child node. I'm
Possibly.
going to bypass it entirely and see if that was the issue. That doesn't seem to be it either. Tis the perils of game development, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Not much works. Not much works. Yes. Not much works first time.
So that is, yeah.
Let's see, you've got it going to the new parent, which is your local root. False. It is duplicating, and this is the correct slot. Let's quickly, just before we decide to end things here, let me quickly take a look at your decal logics. And let's do a little debugging. Let's see. Well, that's one thing I've noticed here, is that you have this elapsed time as soon as it's duplicated, it will trigger the boolean, trigger the delay, trigger this, and then immediately destroy itself. You need another delay.
Delay.
Yes, delays. Thankfully, you already have one.
So I can just duplicate it.
You can just do that. Now you just need to put in there how long it will last.
So let's think it's about like 3.25 seconds should do.
That should do. So now let's go ahead and pack all of the logics, just to keep things nice and tidy.
Let's hide the
And
decal
let's
templates.
see if it decides to work this time. Yep.
Although
You have a
the
little decal.
articles aren't.
Well, we have a decal regardless.
Yes.
Cool. And in general, this is kind of the general workflow to setting up, in this case, a raycast weapon. Of course, there's a lot more that you can add and do, and you can add special effects, you can do all sorts of things, but as a basis, I think this is a good start. What do you think, Aegis?
Yeah.
Emerald Sundisk asks, are you guys opening up after this? Yes, we are, for an hour like we usually do. This will be on the Neos VR channel afterwards. I presume you mean YouTube channel, and if so, yes.
Yeah, it's usually
How's
done
your
after 24 hours,
That
just
should
due
do
to
it.
Twitch.
Nice. Now we finally have something that we can put on one of our boards in here.
I was gonna say, we haven't had much to put on the boards recently.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Okay.
Actually, I should have showcased how you can make it parent to the object that it hits. Say if it's a moving target.
Oh, we can always do something like that next time.
Yeah, next
That's
time.
something we can cover in the future.
This was an awesome tutorial, you guys.
Yeah, it was real fun. Well, let's go ahead and head back behind the desk and greet our very long X-Lan.
Let me
Hello.
save this for
Noodle.
the
Noodle?
Noodle.
No, it's actually
Just
Fruits'
green
channel that the videos get uploaded to, so they will be on there.
Right. Yes.
Yes, we have a Nexulong.
It's long. Yes.
I haven't seen
You
Nex
know
in
it.
that noodle before.
Yep.
Neither have
It's a,
I.
No,
it's
you're
a
right.
surprise. I woke up and I turned into a dragon noodle. I don't know. That's strange.
Yeah, I don't have
As
name
things happen.
tags enabled. That's why you don't see name tags. Can he go
Next
longer?
answer, much ramen.
Try grabbing my tail.
Oh, come round.
Is it? Oh, there you go. I think I'm getting longer, right? Oh,
I
well,
don't
you
think
didn't
you're
hold it.
stretchy.
You just make the dynamic
no,
bones so
stretching.
you can stretch them out longer, yeah.
Yeah.
What happened to our question board, by the way?
Oh, the name
I think
tag
it's-
one
it went down there.
will be uploaded. I might have missed putting that up there, so that will be put up. Don't worry. Apologies if that's not there already. But I will
See
get
if we
that
have any
uploaded.
extent questions. Looks like we might have answered everything. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this
Awesome.
tutorial is definitely going to be one that I rewatch on YouTube, since I was really wanting to learn how you went about, building out a gun.
I like how this chat was silent while I was making logics. Lets me know everyone's paying attention.
But yeah, the stuff will be uploaded to YouTube. I just need to press the export button. So that's my fault.
Nice.
And yes,
Sometime we can- go ahead.
I see Seeker says, I've watched it live, still be watching it a couple times at least. Well, if you can find yourself in Neos here for the next hour after this, you can come and talk to us in person, and I can help you with any of your logics questions, so can the rest of us, for example.
Emerald, the video does exist in a form that can be rewatched regardless, because I've actually been archiving all the workshops recently. There's a few that are missing, but I've actually got them hosted on a PeerTube system that's hosted on my own local network. So it's all there, just in case. But yeah, I'd like to say a big thank you again to Ravy and Aegis here for making this possible. The background music is actually only one track, believe it or not. Santete, thank you for the follow. And I'd like to say thank you to Nex as well for showing up.
Absolutely.
Nex
I woke up.
overslept.
Yeah, I woke up from some nightmares, but now I woke up to the dream, the good stuff.
And apologies, by the way, for the buffering at the start of the stream. That was just my local network being a bit silly, because I do run some other stuff that needed stopping temporarily.
This is what it used to look like.
Oh, you've made quite the update.
And thank you, Wraith, for hosting it. Because usually I stream it out on my side, but they did a really good job with swapping cameras and covering for me.
And thanks, Seeker. Yeah, I absolutely love doing these workshop streams, because some of the stuff, even I've learned something new today. I did not know about that Logix node, the local user one, whatever it was.
Quite frankly, neither did I.
So you see, we're all. Now, you see, I always say this, even us, the team, we're always learning something new in Neos. And, every day is just a discovery for us as much as it is for you. I mean, heck,
I missed.
I run to Ryuvi a lot and go, Ryuvi, help! I need help with this, Ryuvi, I need help with that. I'm sure Ryuvi gets sick of me asking for help.
No, I love helping.
But yeah, anyways, I'll say thank you all for watching. As I say, you're all awesome. Have a great evening, great day, whatever it is for you guys. Create a Jam. Yeah. Can I plug Create a Jam this weekend for those that want to make their own guns? The jam is called Bang Bang. Oh,
Perfect.
How perfect!
How perfect! You guys can make all the guns now.
Yay!
So so you guys check out the Creator Jam. Also, just remember now as well, we do have the MMC running right now. So if you don't notice as many people around in public worlds, that's why. They're off building their MMC projects ready for the end of the month. Guns that make breakfast, guns that hate Texas. So, as I say, we'll return on Friday. Not entirely sure what's going on yet with our Friday stream, but we will be here on Friday. And we'll return on Wednesday next week. No doubt. Hopefully we don't have any more interruptions anymore. Because as I say, we've been awfully busy. No MMC for me till the 14th. Damn exams, unlucky Ramper, unlucky. Interrupting cow? What?
Okay.
Yeah, our streams are an hour earlier for the workshops. It's just because it tailors a bit better to me. Because obviously I'm European. So our other streams go on a bit late. But yeah, the world will be open. Just look for Workshop Wednesdays. public in our active sessions. You will find us there. So, bye-bye for now, and take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.